absolutely do. It's unfortunate that we are the number one child trafficking hub in the world on multiple fronts. So,
Mm.
Ryan Matta, who is the producer and director of this documentary called Never in America, which is the one you watched last night and was just released yesterday, it's already got over 500,000 views in less than 24 hours on Twitter alone. He hasn't even, or X as they call it now, he hasn't even posted it on other platforms yet, which he will tomorrow. And it's trending all over the internet. It's trending all over the world right now. But he previously had put one out describing the child trafficking that went on at the border when Biden took office, and there was all this child trafficking that was happening there. That one also went viral. That was huge. But there's not one form of child trafficking worse than the next. It's all evil. It's all wickedness. In terms of just raw numbers, though, in terms of statistics, when Ryan learned of what was going on internally within our government for CPS for over the last 20 years, it just shocked him and stunned him. And that's when he sought to, produce a documentary to expose that as well. And that's how we got in touch with our family. And he produced this incredible documentary that, look, I lived this. I went through it. Half of this documentary is my family's story. And even being someone who's lived this intimately for the last 3+ years of my life, even I was moved, and even I learned things watching the documentary that he put out that featured our family.
Yeah, it's incredible, and we'll play a little clip of it here in a minute, so people can get a little taste of it. And, everybody's going to want to watch this, I think, all over the world, not just here in America. So, I contributed to him before, and I'm contributing to him again. Every month I contribute to him. I think everybody needs to do that because he does it for free. He does it on his own dime. He just gets it from our support, how he goes forward and does these movies. So definitely an amazing, contribution documentary. Now, I've done these before where I've had people on that talked about their children. And the worst one that I ever did was where this woman had her son that was living with her, baby, like 2-3 years old.
Right.
And the father was very wealthy and was abusive. So she, divorced him, but he got visitation rights, and he would visit with the child, and the child was sexually abused by a ring of people. She was reporting that. The police wouldn't do anything about it because they're all tied in. And the hospital, they contacted her. It's like, you need to come get your son. He's dead. He was sexually abused to death, and we know what that means. So I tried to understand how that could happen with the hospital being involved, the police being involved, the judge being involved. And when I watched this movie or the documentary, I came together for me.
Yep.
I was like, oh my God, they all get money for it. So it's unbelievable, what these guys do, with these, it's like a criminal organization in our own country. It's like, I fought for our country for 35 years, in the military, overseas and so forth. I didn't fight for this. So this is crazy.
You're 100% right. It's unfortunate. First of all, thank you for your service. I've got a lot of veterans and military families who are close to us and to our families. And it's so sad for so many of them as they get red pilled. They start realizing in many cases what they were fighting for was not what they were told they were fighting for. Mm-hmm. Honest people will do an honest day's work if they believe they're doing something honest. And it's not that we really see we don't really see somebody's honesty until they're faced with the realization of the truth. We can all move forward and do whatever we think is true, and then we find out it's not true. Do we continue in the lie, or do we start exposing the truth? That's why we appreciate folks like you, Mike, who will come out and say, hey, man, this is the truth. I'm going to tell it no matter what the consequences are. And this is what Ryan's done. And Ryan has done this in his documentary. Ryan Matta is the guy I'm talking about. This is his documentary. He put this together. He featured our family in it, and he did so for one reason. He just wants to expose the truth to save people's lives, literally. And when you were asking about the story that you were familiar with, this is one of the hardest things for people to understand. And we start off the documentary. I say we, Ryan, he started off the documentary doing it perfectly. So he lays out an unassailable case where he first tells you the story, the background, gives you all the facts, gives you all the details before he gives you an example story. And the example story that he used, of course, was ours. But he lays out all the facts about how it's financed, when it started, who started it, what happens if you try to expose it. The people before we've tried to expose it, like Nancy Schaefer, she was murdered in her house, shot to death, and then they cover up all the murders. literally, and she shows that as well. And you think, well, how could everybody be involved? It's not everybody. And that's the thing we have to remember. They don't need everybody to be involved. They just need one person here and one person there. And it's like you say, everybody's involved. No, it only takes like 4 or 5 people. But those 4 or 5 people have to be in the right positions, and they have to be, criminally involved from the get-go, and they usually are. And it's because they're financially incentivized, number one, but it's also, and this is not mentioned at all, but now, I'll bring it up right now. We can ask ourselves, how do we get to this place? And how is it this way? Well, the number one reason is because good people have refused to be involved in their civil government, and they've refused to be involved in society. Good people generally want to be left alone. Like, I just want the government to leave me alone, and I just want to live for my family and live with my family and do my thing, and that's it, and leave me alone. And I agree, that's what I want. I just want to be left alone. But if all the good people, Christian people, godly people, honest people, faithful people, truthful people, if we say, I don't want to be involved in government. Well, if all the good, honest, truthful people don't want to be involved in government, it's going to leave a vacuum, and who's going to fill it? We're going to have dishonest people, ungodly people, untruthful people, unfaithful people who are going to be ruling over us. And that's exactly what we have when we see here. And it goes back to what you had mentioned, that something so sick and so disgusting and so sad is true cases of actual real abuse. Like when a child is being abused, everybody wants abused children to be safe. There's nobody here who's going to say, oh, get rid of CPS because I don't care about the abused children. No, nobody's saying that. But you understand, we protected abused children before CPS ever existed, and we still could protect them today if we get rid of CPS. And we go through the statistics. We can cover that in a minute about how many children are actually being protected in the real world by CPS, because most are not. But the hardest thing for people to wrap their head around is the reality that an abused child is rarely taken away from their family and put into a safe place. But the safe children whose parents are innocent, who've done nothing wrong, those are the children who usually get taken away from CPS, or by CPS rather. And people just can't wrap their head around it. So the story of this child was literally abused to death. How could that be? How is that possible? How could families like ours who've done nothing wrong and have given everything to our children and our grandchildren, how could our kids get taken away, but this other kid could be exposed to the system and yet the system didn't protect him? How is that possible? But it's true, and the documentary explains in painful detail exactly how and why.
Absolutely. Well, let's watch a little piece of it.
This is the greatest fear parents to have their child taken from them. How in the world does it happen by force, the point of a gun? This one really made my stomach sink.
I can't even believe this story. Cyrus, the 10-month-old baby who's been kidnapped, stripped from his loving parents by CPS.
No, go in the car. So sorry. It's okay. I don't want anybody to have to endure this.
The Baby Cyrus case was the second most viral case in American history regarding CPS.
The media is not really covering this because this is, in fact, medical kidnapping.
They claim that baby Cyrus was underweight.
The kid has lost weight.
Take the baby away.
Get the baby out with CPS to the foster care.
They were willing to release baby Cyrus to a foster family.
I don't let them.
It offers financial incentives to the states that increase adoption numbers.
There's billions of dollars to be had just from the federal government if you take the kids out.
They are profiting off of it.
There's nothing more evil, there's nothing more wicked than what I call child profiting systems.
Once a child is legally kidnapped, the child is far more likely to suffer abuse.
The most dangerous place to be for a child is in the government custody.
He literally has missed out on his childhood because of this.
In 10 months, I've never seen my grandson like this ever.
They just didn't even properly care for him.
It just looked like he was half dead.
That's the care that these animals are saying.
Protesters taking sides in a child welfare case.
We need more people out here. We need more people to stand for this.
I was extremely naive, and I thought there's no way that my son would be taken from me.
These are loving parents. They followed every instruction they were told, and they're being treated like criminals.
These parents, trapped in the system, become like refugees. They do not know what to do. and the loss of their children is devastating.
No man lives in freedom if you live under the constant threat of your child being taken away from you by force.
I'll do anything for Cyrus, for my son. I'll do anything for him.
I've seen this so many times. I can't be that next person. I can't.
That is so tragic.
Says degrees fear.
You know, the most tragic thing regarding it, brother, is Cyrus's case isn't anywhere near close to being the most egregious case within CPS. In fact, far from it. What happened with Cyrus was a miracle. We got him back in 6 days, which literally never happens. It just doesn't ever happen. The documentary explains how we were able to get him back so fast. The part that still hurts me the most is knowing how this is happening hundreds of times every single day all across America, every single day. And there's nothing that I can do to stop it. This documentary is the first silo. It's the first, blast in the process of stopping it. And I'm so grateful to Ryan for making it, because now something potentially could be done.
Yeah, definitely. Now, you got on the horn right away, and I think that was one of the major things, one of the factors. We talk about how people allow this to happen; they don't get involved, but you got involved right away. The Bundy Ranch incident. I guess Bundy was running for governor. He got involved right away. You were able to get on the horn and got all these people to come down right away. Man, you had like hundreds of people down there in front of that hospital, blowing up the phones. This is some of the stuff that we've talked about in other events that are happening in America right now. But I think this is one of the key things that we need to clean up. Everybody needs to understand that, like you said, America is the #1 child trafficking country in the world. We have to stop this. I mean, with the last administration, we had over 300,000 children go missing, and that doesn't even touch every year the number of children that they're taken from families. It's unbelievable.
So the big difference, of course, and like I said, all of it is evil and all of it is wicked. The big difference here, those children that went missing there before, this is the migrant population, people coming in from, trying to immigrate to the United States. The problem with CPS is that it's continual and it is perpetual, and it's been going on since 1997. So in 2 years, it'll be 30 years that this has been going on, since this has been funded by the federal government. So what this means is they are just randomly, and you can say randomly, but it's a little bit more strategic on their end, but it feels random for you. And when I say you, I mean any single one of you guys who are listening to this podcast today. CPS can knock on your door. You've done absolutely nothing wrong, and your life in just a few minutes will be completely and utterly destroyed and demolished. It is absolutely impossible to describe to those of you unless you've gone through it. And the amount of people who have gone through this are millions of people. And this is a tool that they use as a tool of control as well. So the amount of people who also have not experienced CPS tragedy is simply because they complied with a doctor or a police officer who forced them to do something, or else. Do what I tell you, or else. Give your child a vaccine, or else CPS is getting involved. Take this medicine, or else. Put your child in public school and stop homeschooling them, or else CPS is getting involved. So people have been tormented, tortured, and extorted using CPS as a tool. There are anecdotal stories about police officers who use it, corrupt. I'm not saying all police officers are this way, but it's happened where police officers use it as a tool to get sex. They'll force someone and say, do this, or we're taking your kid and putting them in CPS. In cases like that, at least the anecdotal stories I've heard, it's because the mother was a drug addict. She was a druggie. They're picking her up on drugs. Cop wants favor. She says, no, well, not only are we going to book you, but we're going to put your kid in foster care if you don't give me these favors. And that happened in Idaho, by the way, right there, right up the street. One of the police officers involved in arresting my daughter that we saw right there, and this is on our website, and his story is on there as well. he had previously left another police agency just 30 miles away in a town called Caldwell, where that exact story had happened. Where there's some drug addict girls who alleged that the police officers were getting sexual favors for them, because if not, they were going to put them in jail. And then they use that tool as well as a way to threaten their babies with CPS. So it's a tool. It's a weapon that they have to use against political enemies.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Now, you talked about in the movie how there's a lot of people that are, targeted and killed that tried to reveal this.
Sure.
There's another little clip that I'm going to share real quick. This is from Ryan Matamedia. Everybody can go to X and find him. But this little clip right here basically is going to demonstrate if you go against this organization, your life is definitely in danger. So I'm very, very happy that you're doing what you're doing. But obviously I want you to be safe. As a former Navy SEAL and CIA, I know this stuff happens. They target people.
Government kidnapping ring.
Basically, yes. Now, if you expose this stuff, they'll try to kill you.
Over the past decade, every celebrity, politician, or independent journalist who tried to expose the satanic child trafficking enterprise has turned up dead.
Senator Nancy Schaefer from the state of Georgia, our neighbor to the north, she uncovered the same thing you've uncovered, the same thing we uncovered.
I wrote a scathing report entitled The Corrupt Business of Child Protective Services. The report cost me my Senate seat.
Senator Nancy Schaefer of Georgia's 50th District was set to release her documentary called The Corrupt Business of Child Protective Services in 2008.
They had just financed the movie documentary about all these children being wrongfully scammed by CPS.
This Georgia state senator was planning to present her discoveries to the International Criminal Court when she and her husband were found shot dead in their home.
The bodies of former state senator Nancy Schaefer and her husband Bruce were found today at their Habersham County home. Investigators say both had been shot.
Preliminarily looks to be a murder-suicide.
Based on evidence that doesn't add up that way, that Bruce Schaefer shot his own wife in the back, one shot, then turned the gun on himself like this, which is kind of awkward to do, with an unlicensed gun that wasn't registered to anybody when he had a registered gun in his house, available to him. That apparently is what the Georgia Bureau of Investigation wants us to believe.
So as we can see, there's a lot of criminality, that's going on. It's money. I've talked about this on a lot of shows. I was in the CIA. I know how these operations work. We were doing them against terrorists, but I was like, good thing we're doing them against terrorists. We don't do it against our own citizens. But then I started to see that it was being done against our own citizens, unfortunately. So what are your thoughts on that, Diego?
You said that you saw it yourself. You saw it yourself that was turning against our citizens when you were in the CIA, or you saw it afterwards?
No, I when I was in the CIA overseas, we would do operations where we were targeting terrorists and so forth, and we had lots of different ways to do that. Fronts, business fronts, and all kind of crazy stuff that would capture them, people that were involved in a lot of different ways. We had the phone systems that were in cahoots with us, so we could track their phone messages. So I was like, good God, and I saw how we were basically stealing elections overseas. And I was like, the CIA is like involved in all that overseas. And that's what we got to do to win. That's the way it is. But then I started to see not only that, but of course, the media. We control the media overseas. And I was like, good, they could never do that in America because Americans are too educated. Americans are too advanced. But from this one video, we're seeing Americans are being targeted in every single way that I'm just describing.
So that was the inspiration behind the title, Never in America, because we believe we are so propagandized in this country. There is no group of people anywhere who are more propagandized than Americans. We think that, we know everything and we make all of our own decisions, and everything that we believe, we came to those conclusions ourselves. There's nobody more propagandized than us. And I'm not acting like I'm exempt from that. Not at all. I have to realize it took me a long time before I started getting slowly red pilled over many different things in my life. from my patriotism to my faith. My faith in God is very strong, but I even had to realize that the way that, churches in America have been infiltrated with false teachings and false beliefs, etc. And I've always been a huge American patriot. I'm a huge lover of our country, and I still am. I'm a huge lover of what our country has stood for, what our founding fathers fought for, what the message of America originally was. And the vestiges of that history are still pervasive throughout all of our culture.
Yeah.
It still exists. We invented trains, planes, and automobiles, and we put man on the moon. And, we bring people from all over the world, and you become uniquely American, whether they got slanted eyes or dark skin or light skin, or they're tall or they're short or they're fat or they're whatever. That's America. America is a place where anybody who believes in freedom and liberty can be together, and we revolve around not genetics, but a belief system. And the belief system is that man is born free, and we're free to worship our God according to the dictates of our own conscience. And all that I just said, that Americanism, I still love that. I love it now probably more than ever. But our government for the last at least 15 plus years, probably 20 or more, probably ever since Reagan left office, and even then there was a whole bunch of crap going on, our government doesn't represent those values anymore. Not even close. You were in the CIA. I don't have to tell you. You know what they do. We all look around. Nobody trusts the FBI. Nobody trusts the CIA. We don't even believe a cop when he knocks on your door. You don't trust a cop when you get pulled over for speeding. You're afraid you're going to die because you could, and they're going to get away with it. And it's the only country in the world that has a federally subsidized government child trafficking ring. This does not happen in Canada or Mexico or Russia or China. Well, China, they force you to have abortions and stuff like that. True, I agree, and that's wrong. They don't do it anymore. But the United States is the only place where there is a big giant pot of money that every single state government, all 50 of them, can put their hand into and take out literally billions of dollars over the last 20 years by stealing your child. Tell me, how do we live in a free country, or how could you ever consider yourself free if you live under constant perpetual threat of having your children taken away from you? That is not freedom. And most people don't know the statistic that there are more Americans ever since Obama took office. There are at least, from the end of Obama, through Trump, and then definitely with Biden, and now Trump again. There are more legal Americans migrating to Mexico, legal migration of Americans moving to Mexico, than there are Mexicans legally migrating to the United States. That is a statistical fact. Look it up. I challenge anybody. In other words, more Americans are moving to Mexico than Mexicans are moving to the United States. And I'm talking legally right now, not illegally. And so, well, why is that? Well, the number one reason is just for the cost of living, period. Just cost of living. It's just cheaper. And if you're a young person today and you're 25 years old and you just got married, you want to have a kid, and you go, let's go buy our first house for $600,000 off of the income that we make at $24,000, driving an Amazon truck around because it's the only job you can get. Meanwhile, BlackRock's buying up all the houses, and we can go on and talk about all of Americans' problems. And it's mostly an economic decision. But guess what? I can tell you right now, because I've seen it myself, including just in the last week, I fielded 3 different phone calls from families saying, I'm getting out of America. It's too dangerous for my kids to live here. Wow. And where do I go? And people are going all over Latin America. They're going, it's humorous. They're going to the place where we say, we don't want them coming up here. Nobody's going to Canada for all the obvious reasons. But people are moving out, and they're moving anywhere they can just to protect their children.
Wow. Man, that's incredible. You're so articulate on this subject. Unbelievable. Right from the beginning, it's like God touched you. It's like, go speak for the children.
Well, my family said, and Ryan said that they believe that maybe this is what God's been preparing me to do. And perhaps it's so. I was a pastor for a decade of an inner city church in Central California. So I've done a lot of speaking in my day.
Oh, okay. Very good.
And then we moved from California to Idaho, where I got involved in political action for a little over 10 years. So when Cyrus was kidnapped, I had 10 years of interacting with all the politicians, rubbing shoulders with all of them. I don't like any of them. Individually, yes, I like some people as humans, as friends. But once people become politicians, man, I don't know what to tell you. I just don't know what to tell you. But
I know what you mean. When I was a contractor for CIA, and they would always try and say, "Hey, we want you to come and work full time." I'm like, "No, I don't want that lobotomy, man." And so they'd laugh about it, and so we would kid some of our buddies. They're, "Yeah, I'm going to go in full time," and I'm like, "We're like, you're going to get the lobotomy." And it's like, "No, that's not going to happen to me." Sure enough, it did. They got read into something, and it's like they completely changed them, and it's like, wow. So you're right. There's some organizations, once you go in them, you just like lose all your integrity and your morals and everything else.
Well, I'll give you a really quick anecdotal story about that very thing. There was a friend of ours who's a family friend. Him and his family are friends, and he was involved in politics there in Idaho, and he ran for governor and didn't win, and then he ran for Congress there in Idaho, and we helped him and his family, and we're still close friends with their family, and he got elected. And right before he went to Washington, I pulled him aside, and I said, "Hey, brother, I want to talk to you." He said, "Yeah." I said, "You are going to Washington where men go to lose their souls." And he just kind of laughed and chuckled. And I said, "And I want you to know that I don't care that you're now Congressman so-and-so. To me, you're just brother so-and-so. And the fact that you're a congressman doesn't mean anything. And you know, because you've said it as well, that you guys work for us, not the other way around. So don't let it get to your head that you think you're above everybody else. And I want you to know that as soon as I see you going the wrong way, brother, I'm not going to step back and say, I'm not going to say anything against him. I'm going to call you and I'm going to tell you to your face that you're going the wrong way. And I want you to know I'm going to do that." And he looked me back in the eye and he said, "Brother, I beg you to do that for me. Please don't let me go the wrong way. Please do that." I said, "Okay." Well, 2 years later, "Hey, brother," I'm calling him up. "You're going the wrong way. You're doing the wrong thing." He hung up the phone on me, ghosted me, said I'll never talk to him ever again. Oh. And that's just, it's just one story, but everybody has the same story with politicians. So the point in all that is this. I don't hate the guy. It's just a reality that is sad. And the reality at that point was, after that time, we were able to have all these different connections, people who knew us. Everybody either hated us or loved us, right? That's just the way it is. And that's who we were contacting. We're contacting anybody who we know who's connected, whether they were politicians and what people might call movers and shakers, or people who are connected. The governor hated my guts because we had attacked him during the COVID years. But I can tell you right now, the most effective thing, you mentioned the Bundys, so I'm assuming you know who they are and you know their story. Well, Ammon Bundy was a good friend of ours at the time because we got connected during the COVID years because we stood up to fight against tyranny. I had a political action committee called the Freedom Man Political Action Committee. And Ammon lived there in Idaho, and I didn't know that. Of course, I knew the story from 2014, but in 2020, I didn't know that Ammon was my neighbor living 45 minutes away.
I was living in Sedona at the time that was happening. I almost loaded up my car with my bullets, my guns, my body armor, and went up there. And then they resolved it. But yeah, that was a crazy time.
Well, let me tell you something amazing that Ammon told me privately, and he has no problem or issue with me sharing it publicly. But when that story happened, for those who don't know, the Bundy family is the only family in the history of America to withstand the federal government and to live to tell the tale. And so the government has since tried everything possible to completely, utterly destroy the family using lawfare, using physical force, violence, including being one of the first families to be arrested and violently thrown in jail. Ammon was in solitary confinement for 10 months without ever having a charge against them. So they physically tortured them in jail, like true, legitimate physical torture, like the stuff you read about in the CIA manuals.
Yep.
He's endured it. His father, his brothers, they all were tortured in jail without a charge laid against them. That's illegal. That could never happen in America, but it did. And guess what the consequences were for the people who did it to them? They've all been promoted and got pay raises. There's zero consequences for these people, and that's why it keeps happening and happening and happening, because there's no consequences. However, Ammon came to a realization of something that in that process, and that was there were over 280, police agents from 5 different agencies. I think it was the ATF, the local sheriff's office, the FBI, who else? The Bureau of Land Management, and whoever else. Oh, the local city cops as well. I might have got that wrong, but whatever. There's over 280 of them, and they all come out guns a-blazing, and they're pointing them at the Ammon Bundy family. Not just Ammon Bundy family, it was his father, Cliven Bundy, and Ammon, of course, is the son, and they're Mormons. There's a whole bunch of them. I don't remember how many there were. I think he's got 8 brothers, something like that. Great people, salt of the earth, the true salt of the earth. I use the term salt of the earth. That's what the Bundy family is, the salt of the earth, straight up.
I agree.
And obviously, you got your family, you got all these people from the government pointing guns at you. You know, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to die. That's what's going to happen. But the difference in 2014 compared to, say, the Waco story or the Ruby Ridge story or any of the other tragedies of our past was that this is the age of social media. This is the age of cell phones and cameras. And people were filming this abuse and posting it on Facebook, and it was going viral. And Americans freaked out. And over 3,000 Americans showed up to the Bundy Ranch and stood in between the Bundy family and the police agencies. And with 3,000 Americans standing there, many of them armed, the police agencies backed off and they walked away. And Ammon told me, he said, when that happened, he goes, you know, a lot of people debate about the Second Amendment and what it means to, you know, have a militia, and the militia and the right to bear arms shall not be infringed. And he goes, there's all this debate about what it means, and contextually at the time it was written, what it means and what it means today, and blah, blah, blah. And different, you know, legislatures have tried to define it. He goes, but brother, I had a revelation right then and there. Right then and there, when I have government agencies, and because at the end of the day, nobody can deny that the Second Amendment exists for the people to protect themselves against the government, not so you can go hunting or not so you can prevent, you know, somebody from stealing things from your house. It's not self-defense, it's defense against the government. That's the purpose of the Second Amendment. That's what it tells us in the Federalist Papers. That's what the history tells us. Anybody who knows their history knows that that's the purpose of the Second Amendment. It's not self-defense. It's not hunting. It exists to present ourselves, protect ourselves against the tyranny of an overreaching government. And so here's an overreaching government, and who shows up? The people. And Ammon said, right then and there, I got a revelation. That's the militia. The militia are the people standing in defense of their brothers and sisters, or how he articulates it, it's neighbors standing to defend their neighbors. That's what the militia is. And the only way we can preserve the people's rights is for neighbors to be willing to stand up and defend their neighbors. So when COVID happened, Ammon said, we need to get a network of people together who have that same belief system, that we're going to defend one another. And he called it the People's Rights Network. And he funded out of his own pocket a piece of software, because most people think Ammon is just a hick from the sticks and he's just a country boy and a cowboy. But he's actually a very brilliant businessman, and he was a software developer. And he previously had a software company that he sold, and that's where he made his money from originally. And he said, I'm going to do it again. So he created a piece of software that was a communication tool so that anybody can join this network freely. It costs no money to the people. There's no hierarchy. There's no system. He just said, if you, Michael, say, I want to be a part of this network, and Diego lives close and he's part of it, then this software is going to connect you guys, and you guys just talk to each other and protect each other. It's on you. I'll provide the backbone. I'll provide the infrastructure. You guys take care of each other. And he did that. 60,000 people signed up for that service and for that system and that network during the COVID years. And they started having monthly meetings, and they started in all their, all over, in all 50 states.
Oh, wow.
And they started protecting one another. And so our family was involved. And so when you see 400 people showed up that day to, defend baby Cyrus, a whole lot of those people were People's Rights Network members, people who knew my family. We knew their family. And People's Rights has had multiple successes getting children back who were taken by CPS. The first case, I believe, happened in the state of Washington, where a woman was gave birth during the COVID, the first COVID insanity. Mm-hmm. And at birth, they took the baby away. It was either at birth or the next day, and the own mother wasn't allowed to have the baby because they allegedly swabbed her and she had COVID. So we got to keep the baby away from the mom. And so what happened? People's Rights showed up, and People's Rights is all autonomous, independent, everybody on their own. And so, you're there in Nevada. You could connect with people who are there in Nevada, and you guys all defend one another. And that's all it is. It's basically a system where you guys go together and you meet once a month or whatever you guys decide to do. Because, again, it's all independent and autonomous. And you just meet one another. You meet your friends. You're going to find a ton of them believe like you. Maybe some of them don't. Maybe you like guns and you're a right-winger, or you're a Republican, or you're a libertarian, or you're a Christian, you're a homeschooler, you're an anti-vaxxer or something. Somebody else is not a believer, and somebody else has vaccines, and somebody else is in public school. But they also don't want anybody attacking them. And they say, I'll stand for you if you stand for me. I mean, that's kind of what makes America, America, right? Live and let live. And we'll persuade each other with articulate ideas. That's the way we win people over. We won't do it by force. That's what makes America great.
Yeah.
Let ideas rule and not force. And so they absolutely hate that idea. The powers that be hate that idea. And, you know, Ammon, it's his brainchild. And that is one of the most important messages we can share with folks, is that whether you join the People's Rights Network or no, conceptually, if you want to preserve freedom, it's going to be your neighbors defending you and you defending them.
Beautiful. Wow, that sounds fantastic. I'm definitely going to get involved with that. So Freedom Man, this is the website, goes into what little Cyrus was experiencing. It's a cyclic vomiting syndrome.
Correct.
And so they couldn't figure it out at St. Luke's Hospital, namely Dr. Natasha Erickson. And, you know, she's exposed in the film for being what I call a baddie. So, you know, a lot of these people, I think they were targeted when they came in. They're young, they're easily impressionable. They're do what they're told, and so they saw an opening, I believe, because I think they really target people for stealing their children.
So once you understand the system, how it works, they do target people, and they're looking for their best targets, and that can be defined in multiple ways. But at the end of the day, yes, they target people, but there's something that is more abusive than just targeting certain children and certain families. And that is, doctors have a God complex. There's nobody more revered in America than a doctor. Preachers bow down to doctors, pastors, politicians, the president of the United States, 5-star, generals, admirals in the Navy, Navy SEALs, Delta Force. Everybody will do whatever a doctor says. Everybody. Doctors have utter authority and control over everybody. And if you dare be the very first person to challenge what a doctor says, they're going to freak out. They're authoritarians. And so there's a movement today all across America where people are going, the doctor said I need to get vaccinated, but I don't know about that. Other people are saying, the doctor said I need to get all these additional shots, but I don't know about that. The doctor said I'm supposed to eat all these poisons, but I don't know. The doctor said I need this surgery. The doctor says I need these medicines. The doctor says I need to be on OxyContin. I don't know about that. These things sound dangerous to me. And doctors are absolutely freaking out because 100% of people don't believe them anymore. Now it's like 90%, maybe 80, I don't know. But that 10 to 20% who no longer trust them, they hate them. They hate them, want to destroy them. And so they need a tool. The number one tool they use is fear. But for young people with kids, the tool they use is CPS. Do what I say or else.
Ooh.
And so that's what happened here. Natasha Erickson gave them some, do this, do what I say or else. And the or else was, I will call CPS. Now, she, to this day, expressly denies ever having threatened a CPS phone call. However, she's a liar and a perjurer because in her own medical report, which we now have, she signed it, and it says there that she said, I let them know that I would have to make a CPS referral if they did not do what I say. Now, I'm paraphrasing, but that's what it says. And it's in the documentation, her own medical records. So she lies after the fact and says she didn't say it. That's what doctors do.
And they also, like you mentioned, they target, people like us, people that love God, love their country, and have good values and morals and so forth. Why is that?
So we definitely mentioned in the documentary, and I don't have any statistical evidence or any empirical evidence to substantiate that, like factually or scientifically. It's purely anecdotal. However, we can't have scientific evidence about that because how would you get that information? Like, how would you make that survey? But the example I use, just for people who are incredulous and people are like, I don't believe our government would ever do that. Do you remember, brother, in the Obama years when there was this huge scandal that the Obama administration had directed the IRS to go after and audit and attack, right-wing organizations, conservative organizations, people who donated to Republican candidates and any religious institutions? They were targeting them during those years. And at the time they denied it. That's not happening. We would never do such a thing. Your government would never attack people for political reasons. No. It was denied. Then, of course, it took, 8-10 years of investigations. And after all those investigations came out, it was true. They were specifically targeting right-wingers, Republican candidate supporters, conservative organizations, et cetera, et cetera. They were targeting them. And that was proven as a fact that they did that. The consequences were the director of the IRS had to come out and make a public apology. So they came out and made some boilerplate public apology. Nobody got fired. Nobody got in trouble. Nothing that there were no consequences, and life goes on. But the point is, the government was when the wrong people got into power, those wrong people used their power to attack and to abuse their political opponents or their ideological enemies. If they would do that with the IRS, you don't think they'd do that with CPS? You don't think they would use another weapon, which is even more powerful? Of course they would. And so they are absolutely using CPS because it's the most powerful tool. So previously, when this all got started in 1997, after the passage of the ASFA law, which is ASFA, that's the acronym, stands for the Adoption Safe Families Act. It was championed by Hillary Clinton and signed by Bill Clinton. Yep. And you can hear all the facts about that and the history about it in the documentary. But initially, brother, who are they targeting? They were targeting single minority women, girls who are 16, 17 years old, forgive the expression, but they got knocked up when they were teenagers. They're now single moms. They're 17, 18, 19 years old. Maybe they get in trouble for whatever reason. There's a domestic violence charge. Maybe they got caught with a beer when they were 17 years old or whatever. And they got a kid. They take those kids. And so they were taking millions, literally millions of these kids from single minority women who had zero ability to defend themselves. They had no support mechanism, nothing behind them. That was going on for years. Well, like everything else, when it comes to wickedness and evil in this world, at some point in time, they get cocky and they go too far, right? You keep getting worse and worse and worse, and you get more and more evil. You know, the scripture says if that sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, then the heart of man is fully set in them to do more evil. So like if you steal something and you don't get your hand chopped off immediately, you're just going to steal more and more, and you just keep getting worse and worse and worse. And so from a spiritual perspective, we say if you sin and you don't get caught, then you sin some more and you do some more. Same thing with crime. If you commit a crime and nothing happens, there's no consequences, you do more and you do it more and more and more. And eventually they kept pushing and they said, hey, not only can we steal these kids, we could use this as a weapon to attack our enemies because nobody can fight against us. And they've taken out millionaires. They've taken out, prominent members of society, celebrities, no consequences over and over and over again. So let's just take anybody out. So we found anecdotally, as somebody who experienced this and had a lot of attention to our family and people using our website and other means to contact us. And I heard story after story after story to the point where I literally couldn't emotionally bear the weight of the load of hearing these stories repeatedly again and again and again. But it was very evident that they have at least the last 5 years, if not maybe a little bit more, they have been targeting, and I'm going to air quote for those who are listening and not watching, right-wing families. They are targeting conservatives, Christians, homeschoolers, anti-vaxxers, non-compliant people who listen to Alex Jones and Michael Jaco, and people who listen to Tucker Carlson, and people who historically we listen to Rush Limbaugh, Rush babies and things like that. If you listen to conservative radio, if you go to church, if you homeschool your children or put your children in private Christian schools, if you're a believer, if you have morals, if you oppose transgender crap, then there's something wrong with you, and we are going to take your kids away from you, because now all of this became, in the Obama years, it was all about permission. And then in the Biden years, it was all about force. In other words, in the Obama years, we want to make it possible to permit people to get married if they're gay. We want to allow it to be possible for people to be transgender, be accepted in society. But in the Biden years, it was force. Accept this or die. We're going to force this on everybody, or there will be consequences.
Yeah.
And it was in those years we see that CPS has been used. Just state has the legal authority to do whatever they want to do to him. They are his legal parent, including drugging him up. And Michael Jaco here can tell you that there's drugs that exist that they can get your kids to do and say and think whatever, including turning against you as parents. And so once they're, you might think my son is strong. He's 17 years old. He'll fight against them. Not when he's strapped down and there's 5 giant cops on him and they're injecting him with 27 different drugs in 24 hours. So if you have a child who's a minor, a legal minor, and you live in the United States of America and you are a right winger under any of those categories I just described, you're a target. This is that important.
That's incredible. And you make a good point that earlier, and you did it in the documentary as well, that we don't need CPS.
That's right.
It really should go away because it's a criminal organization that was started by the Clintons, and it's still running, and it's gotten worse and worse over the years, and it's paying out police forces and so forth that were like hurting for money. If they start targeting kids, they get payout. So and that's what's happening to a lot of people within government and judges. I remember in the video one time they were talking about how this one woman's like, she gave like all these different points. It's like, for the average person that can actually think for themselves, you'd be like, well, you're definitely not having your child taken away. But the judge just like looked at a screen where there was like a written, this is what you're going to say.
That was my daughter.
That was your daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's crazy, unbelievable.
So not only was that my daughter, but the judge. If you go back to that website, Baby Cyrus, let me point something out here for you. So I want to point out to you who that judge was, because this is just going to blow your ever living mind. So you can go there to babyscyrus.com, and we pull up on screen. I'll just kind of guide you to where to go. And up there where it says Baby Cyrus at the top, there's that drop down menu for Baby Cyrus. Go over there to where it says the kidnappers or the people involved. Let me see what it says. I can't see it. The screen's a little too small. Yeah, so I can see now. So yeah, go back to that. It says kidnappers, bottom left over there. Go there. So who are all the kidnappers? So once this pops up, you're going to hear the people involved. See the first one, there's Judge Lori Fortier.
Wow.
Click on Judge Lori Fortier so you can see how she was involved and what she did. Now, this is going to blow everybody's mind who's not paying attention here. Judge Lori Fortier is the primary judge in the 4th District of Idaho, which is the metropolitan area of Boise, Idaho, the capital. She's the one responsible for hearing all of these child trafficking cases, or rather the CPS cases. So if Michael Jaco has a son who's 17 years old or a kid who's 7 years old, doesn't matter. They're going to take that kid away, and in 48 hours, you have to stand before this judge, and the judge is going to tell you whether or not you get your kid back or not. Well, this judge is a lesbian. Her lesbian lover is the person at the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare who's responsible for all the compliance to ensure that the state of Idaho gets paid by the federal government when they bring in children from child trafficking. So as a compliance officer, basically the state of Idaho has to comply with the federal government's rules in order to get the money for child trafficking, for CPS. And so who's the person in charge of that? It's this woman. If you scroll down, her name's down there. And isn't that shocking that the woman who's responsible for ensuring that the state of Idaho gets paid for child trafficking is the lesbian lover to the one who is responsible for a constant flow of merchandise, being all these children? Wow, and the documentation's all there. None of this stuff is alleged. It's all documented right there. You can read it on that page where you're looking at right now. And it's all been documented.
Gosh,
this is the kind of crap we have going on.
Website. Good job.
Yeah, it's all right there. This is the kind of stuff that's going on. And this is just one state, and this is just one area. So yeah, judges are unfortunately remarkably corrupt. When we say they get paid, what people have to understand, it's not like do this and you get a check or they deposit money in your account or something like that. The way it actually works is that this is all government funded. And so the government has essentially an infinite amount of money. For those who don't know that, I don't know what to tell you, but it's not like we're creating the $36 trillion of debt that we keep spending every single year. We're creating it. We are destroying ourselves. We're creating the inflation. You can't actually create money. You just can create this debt, but there's an infinite pool of money that they can tap into. So how do they control the states? They control the states by giving them the carrot stick of here, we'll give you money if you do what we say. So all 50 states have complied. Well, if you want to get this money, here's what happens. There's money and programs, dozens of them, that all these other agencies can tap into. Police agencies don't get a check from the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare. But if they get enough children that they have going through, then grant money opens up for them and additional funding money opens up. Funding from the federal government opens up. So we want to go in there and pick up that kid. in Europe, a hospital, and you claim we got budget cuts here and budget cuts there, which is all a bunch of lies. Then think about it. How many kids do you want passing through your doors every day? I mean, it's millions of dollars. It's literally millions of dollars every single year in every single state and in all of these different hospitals as well. These allopathic hospitals, literally, brother, have CPS offices inside the hospital with a permanent social worker working there.
Now, when I was in the CIA, we were chasing terrorists. That was my job. I was in Afghanistan, and we're like right up along the border with Russia, one of Russia's satellite provinces or whatever. And we had a guy that had worked in Vietnam, and he came in and he was like, "Where are the drug dealers?" And we're like, "What? We're not focused on drug dealers. We're hunting terrorists." So basically what he did is he came in, and just like he did in Vietnam, the opium, he came in and started setting up the opium. It wasn't long after that the opioid crisis blew up in America. And so there's a lot of black projects out there that our government is involved in. Like you were talking about, money is not an issue. They will get the money from how they get the money. So it's frustrating for those of us that are privy to the insights, what's corrupt. And I've talked about this already. You think anything's happened? Of course not. You're talking about it. What do you get? You get $50 million lawsuit. It's insane. But what you guys did that day was you stood up. Now, I remember in the video, you're on the